At a train station in London, train guard Joe is wrapping up his shift when he stumbles upon a letter in his locker. It's a big fat no for the promotion he applied for, and he crumples the paper in frustration. Just then, his supervisor shows up and asks Joe to cover the night shift because the regular night guard is sick. At first, Joe wants to say no, but then he spots his crush, Ellen, who will be the trolley girl tonight. Well, that changes everything. Once the train takes off, Joe starts checking passengers' tickets. Most people are cool about it, but some get annoyed and treat him like he's the villain for doing his job. A woman drops her cane, and when Joe helps her, he gets startled by a sudden growl. Turns out it's just her dog. Then there's Kate, who claims she lost her ticket and gets furious when Joe makes her pay a fine. Meanwhile, in a corner, Billy is changing into more comfortable clothes, probably preparing for a cozy night. Joe notices the bathroom door has a sign that says out of order, and there's water leaking from it. Just when he bumps into Ellen and finally gathers the courage to ask her out, she turns him down, and to make it worse, passenger Paul is staring at them, making the whole situation even more uncomfortable. For the next few hours, the train rolls smoothly under the rain and full moon, with passengers getting off at each station until only a handful are left. But then, as they reach a wooded area, a loud screech echoes through the train, and it suddenly comes to a halt. Joe, being the brave guard he is, starts moving through the coaches to figure out what happened. He spots a shadow behind a door, but just as he's about to open it, he gets startled by the train's speakers. The driver announces they hit something on the tracks and asks everyone to remain calm. Joe finally opens the door and discovers Ellen's trolley has fallen over. He tries to pick it up but struggles, so Adrian steps in to help. While they're at it, Joe finds 2 sets of keys on the ground and is surprised to learn they both belong to Adrian. Meanwhile, passengers are starting to panic, so Joe does his best to calm them down. He tries contacting the driver, Tony, on the radio, but there's no response. Instead, he uses the speakers to ask everyone to be patient. Meanwhile, Tony has left the train to check on what they hit and discovers it was a deer stuck in the wheels. He tries to pull it out but can't manage it. Just then, he hears a noise behind him, and when he turns around, a mysterious creature attacks him and starts munching on him. His blood splatters on a window, but thankfully the rain washes it away before anyone notices. Back on the train, Joe is getting tired of waiting and uses his keys to enter the control coach, only to find it empty. He looks outside but doesn't see Tony anywhere. After telling Ellen to keep the passengers calm with some free snacks, always a good strategy of course, Joe takes another look outside but still finds nothing. He decides to call the company's rescue team, who inform him they're delayed due to a storm causing accidents. The phone signal is terrible, but Joe manages to find out they'll arrive in 4 hours. When Joe shares the news with the passengers, they start freaking out, and when he tells them the driver has disappeared, the panic escalates. Adrian has to yell to get everyone to quiet down. He suggests they should just walk to the next station since they have no signal on their phones. Joe tries to explain that it's dangerous and that he could lose his job, but the passengers team up against him, and he reluctantly agrees to guide them. After Joe unlocks the door, the group forms a line and walks next to the train, completely unaware that someone is watching them from the woods. Suddenly, they hear something rustling in the bushes, so Joe and Ellen go to check it out. To their horror, they find Tony's mauled body on the ground. They quickly head back and warn the passengers to get back on the train as howls and growls echo in the distance. It takes Joe a few seconds to unlock the door, but once he does, everyone rushes inside in a panic. An elderly couple is slower to get in because of their age, and just as they finally jump aboard, the monster manages to bite Jenny's leg. It even shakes her up and down between the doors before the group can finally drag her inside and lock the car. Once they're all inside, Ellen tends to Jenny's wound with some water and does her best to wrap it up. Meanwhile, Billy and Matthew try to peer out the window with a flashlight, but they can't see anything out there. When Joe checks the door to make sure it's locked, the monster pounds on the train car and growls. The group decides it's best to stay as quiet as possible. They can hear the creature's claws scratching against the train coach, and the group waits in tense silence until the howling fades into the distance. Then Joe heads to the control car, hoping to use the train phone, but there's no signal. Just then, Billy joins him and reveals he's an engineering student. After checking the controls, he discovers there's a fuel leak that caused the line to split when the train crashed. If they don't fix it, they'll be stuck here forever. Outside, it's clear the creature is responsible for breaking the train's antenna. Joe explains the situation to the passengers, who start debating what kind of animal is attacking them. Adrian suggests it's a bear, but Nina points out that bears don't howl. Jenny chimes in, saying it feels more human than animal, but everyone thinks she's just in shock. Suddenly, they hear noises coming from another coach, and worry that the monster might be trying to get in. Joe grabs a fire extinguisher and teams up with Billy and Adrian to investigate. They carefully cross the coach and discover the noise is coming from the bathroom. As Adrian gets ready to strike, Joe unlocks the door, only to see Paul tumble out. Turns out he's been stuck in there since before the crash. The four guys return to the group, and Paul is filled in on the monster situation. Instead of freaking out, he's just bummed that he missed his stop. A little while later, they check on Jenny's wound and notice it's getting worse. She's also developed a fever. Kate sees that Nina is young and scared, so she tries to comfort her with stories about her own daughter. But then the creature starts pounding on the door again and jumps onto the roof, causing the train's lights to flicker ominously. Just then, Nina's phone finally gets a signal, and she receives a call from her mother. As she tries to ask for help, the creature bursts through the window. It grabs Nina by the legs and drags her out while she screams. Kate tries to grab her hand to help, but Matthew pulls her back just in time to save her from being captured too. They hear the beast mauling Nina on the roof, and her blood splatters on the windows. Terrified, the group rushes to hide in another couch. Kate freaks out, yelling that nobody tried to save Nina. An argument breaks out until Jenny's husband, Ged, yells for everyone to shut up and reminds them they need to work together to survive. They remember there's a box of tools on the train, so the passengers start barricading every entry point with whatever they can find, like seats and luggage. Time passes, and the mood gets gloomier by the minute. Jenny and Kate realize they didn't even know Nina's name, and Jenny admits she's always wanted kids but never had any. It's a dark moment, but they know they have to stay strong if they want to survive this nightmare. In a corner of the train, Adrian chats with Joe, revealing that he has two sets of keys, one for his nice family home and another for a secret apartment where he has his naughty adventures. He believes in doing whatever it takes to get by, even if it's not the nicest thing, and suggests that Joe team up with him to escape, leaving the weaklings behind. Before Joe can respond, Jenny suddenly pukes a bunch of blood and even 2 teeth. This leads to another argument about what to do, but it's interrupted when Joe realizes Paul is missing. The barricade has been moved, and Adrian wants to put it back in place, but Joe and Billy convince him to give them a minute to find Paul. Joe heads into the other coach and discovers Paul stuck in the bathroom again. As Joe tries to open the door, the bathroom light flickers and then goes out, and suddenly the beast crashes in from above to attack Paul. Joe has to step back as the door gets damaged during the chaos, and soon blood starts oozing out of the holes. He peeks through one of them and is horrified to see Paul's dying body. When Joe tries to go back to the other coach, he finds Adrian has blocked the door. Speaking of Adrian, he hears the commotion and decides to save himself, removing the barricade on the boarding door. But it's locked, and guess who has the key? That's right, Joe. Back to Joe, he keeps pushing against the door while watching the monster approach him. Just as he's about to be attacked, the others finally open the door and drag him inside, quickly blocking it again. While the group tries to pile up as many things as possible to barricade the door, Adrian attempts to break a window with a fire extinguisher, but it's a no-go. Unfortunately, the beast is too strong and breaks through the barricade, causing Ellen to freeze in fear. Thankfully, Joe acts quickly and moves her out of the way before the monster can hurt her. Then, the creature lunges for Joe, roaring right in his face, but Ellen stabs it. The monster immediately turns to hit her, sending her flying across the coach. The guys seize the opportunity to jump on it from behind, beating and stabbing it with whatever they can find. Billy gets grabbed by the neck and shoved against the ceiling, only to be dropped when Adrian hits the creature's stab wound with the fire extinguisher. Just then, Matthew bursts in with a fire axe and starts hacking at the monster until it finally goes down for good. Kate has to pull Matthew back as he starts to break down, overwhelmed by the chaos. Seconds later, the group takes a closer look at the creature and notices a ring on its finger. Like Jenny said, it looks very human-like, leading Matthew to conclude it's a werewolf. Adrian remembers that anyone bitten by a werewolf can transform too, and suddenly everyone is looking at Jenny with suspicion. While some passengers cover the body, Ged shares a chilling story about a train that derailed in this area many years ago. Authorities found many bodies missing and others mauled, but no explanation was ever given. He concludes that the werewolf must have killed them too. Just then, the beast stirs and howls, prompting Joe to start pounding its face with the fire extinguisher. In the forest, other werewolves hear the howl of their fallen leader. Suddenly, Jenny's face starts to change, and she growls too. Adrian wants to kill her before she fully transforms, but Ged won't let him. The other passengers push Adrian back, but he fights against them, refusing to give up. He breaks free and starts choking Jenny, but Joe steps in and punches him to knock him down. The group agrees to tie up both Adrian and Jenny using belts. Afterward, they devise a plan. Billy will try to fix the train while teaching Ellen what buttons to press to get them out of there as soon as the train is operational again, while Joe makes a motivational speech over the speaker, trying to keep everyone's spirits up. Matthew and Billy hop off the train and quickly locate the fuel leak. While Billy crawls under the train to fix it, Matthew keeps watch. Inside, Kate reveals that she and Adrian had a wild night together not long ago, but Adrian doesn't even remember his one-night stands. Meanwhile, Jenny starts struggling to breathe, and Adrian insists they need to do something before it's too late. At that moment, Matthew hears a noise in the forest and goes to investigate, leaving Billy in the dark. In the woods, Matthew hears Nina's voice crying for help and follows it, only to discover her body perched atop a tree, being devoured by a werewolf. Terrified, Matthew tries to run, but the werewolves quickly surround him. He swings his axe in self-defense, but it's no use, and the werewolves pounce on him, tearing him apart. Back on the train, everyone hears Matthew's screams followed by a loud howl, causing Jenny freezes, and Adrian keeps insisting that Kate should kill her before it's too late. Billy finally manages to fix the train, and the lights flicker back on. Joe and Ellen quickly try to figure out the controls, but just then, the werewolves approach the train. Billy grabs the coach and lifts himself to hide, hoping the monsters will go away. Unfortunately, the werewolves appear at the front window, startling Joe and Ellen, who finally manage to activate the train, and Billy has to hold on tight to the coach to avoid being left behind. Suddenly, Jenny completes her transformation into a werewolf, and Kate rushes to free Adrian before Jenny can break free with her newfound strength. Adrian tries to help Ged, but Jenny knocks him down. At that moment, another werewolf appears at the door and grabs Kate, who screams for help, but Adrian kicks her to push her and the werewolf off the train, and the train speeds away, leaving Kate behind to become Werewolf Chow. As Ged tries to reason with his wife, Adrian attempts to fight Jenny again, hitting her with a wrench. Furious, Ged punches Adrian back before he can kill her. Then, in a shocking twist, Jenny jumps on Ged and bites his neck, causing blood to spray everywhere. While Jenny tries to go after Adrian, Billy struggles to hold on and accidentally breaks the repairs he just made, causing the train to stop again. Joe and Ellen rush out of the control coach and stab Jenny just before she can finish off Adrian. In a fit of rage, Joe jumps on Adrian to beat him up, but Ellen intervenes. The werewolf sees the opportunity to enter the train, so Joe and Ellen scramble to lock the door. Adrian realizes he'd have a better chance to escape if one person stays behind as bait, so he knocks Joe down. But Joe isn't out for long, he immediately retaliates, triggering a fierce struggle on the ground. While the two men grapple, Ellen grabs a sharp piece of metal and cuts Adrian until he lets go of Joe. As Ellen tends to her friend, Adrian blocks the way and snatches the keys from the door before jumping out of the train. The werewolves quickly surround Joe and Ellen, but before they can attack, Billy appears with a Molotov cocktail ready to go. He throws it at one of the werewolves, igniting it in flames and creating chaos. Then he lights up a torch, scaring the other monsters back into the other coach while handing Joe and Ellen a crowbar. This allows them to force the door open and jump out of the train, but unfortunately, Billy gets captured and killed in the process. As Ellen and Joe sprint through the forest, they can hear the werewolves closing in on them. Realizing it's too late, Joe kisses Ellen and tells her to run while he stays behind as a distraction. With tears in her eyes, Ellen finds a path to escape while Joe prepares to fight the werewolves with a piece of metal, managing to stab one of them. But no matter how hard he fights, the werewolves overpower him, and he ends up getting bitten. Moments later, Ellen reaches the next train station, clutching Joe's name tag in her hand. Meanwhile, Adrian continues to flee and stumbles upon some clothes on the ground. Suddenly, the werewolves surround him, and a newly transformed Joe leaps out to attack. What a wild turn of events, man. This movie's name is Howl, which has got 5.5 rating on IMDb. Despite this, the movie is worth watching. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please hit the like if you truly enjoyed it, and hit the subscribe for more content like this. I'm sure we'll meet again in next video.